everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Marjorie. I've got this 14-inch Dollar Tree wreath frame, and I was showing you in the two inner rings of one section. I was applying a pipe cleaner, and then the two rows underneath the one pipe cleaner, I add another two pipe cleaners. This wreath actually has 6 sections, and with 3 pipe cleaners in each section, it's a total of 18 pipe cleaners. So for the inner wreath, it is 6 pipe cleaners, and for the outer wreath, it is 12. So I actually attach my pipe cleaner to the crossbar, and then I run it across I run my hand across to create a 10-inch loop. And so I measure out 10 inches, and then I attach it in the first pipe cleaner and poof out my loop. From that first pipe cleaner, I measure out another 10 inches, running my hand along the mesh, and doing that same method going through the 12 pipe cleaners at the bottom of the wreath. Now, the reason I run my hand down the deco mesh is one of the reasons is I'm trying to keep the ends, the manufactured completed ends, rolled under, and because that helps keep your poof real nice and big. So just make sure you're keeping those facing under when you're attaching your deco mesh. And then I just take and zip tie it to the same crossbar that I started off. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the red deco mesh, but I just start off and end at a different crossbar. So this is a good method to use up some of the 21-inch mesh that you've used before, and just adding them into a wreath to add a variety of colors and, you know, make it nice and full. I really like to do this, and it's pretty economical. So I do have this black and white striped mesh, and all of my mesh has come from Craft Outlet. I'm going to take this one roll of black and white mesh and cut 20 inches. So one roll of this mesh comes in 30 yards or 360 inches. With that, and you divide it by however many pipe cleaners you have, which in this case is 18, that gives you a total of 20 inches per cut. And here I'm just doing the cruffle method. I'm not using a clip of any sort. You definitely can. I definitely use them with my longer strips of mesh, like when I do 36 or 30 inches. When I do 30 inches on my mesh, then I do use a little clip. It helps out a lot, but with the shorter ones, you really don't need it once you get the hang of how to do it. And I just do a cruffle method and add it to each one of the pipe cleaners. So here I have my ribbons cut in 14-inch tails. They're 2.5 inches wide, and I find the middle, and I just pinch it in the middle, and I place it right on top of my pipe cleaner, And then I take some cutters and cut that off. I cut it down to about a 1/2 inch to 1/4 of an inch. And then I just push that back into the deco mesh so you can't see it. Now, one of the reasons I cross my ribbons slightly as I am gathering them together is because when you attach them to the wreath, you don't have to do as much messing with the ribbon as much. Now here I've already set my sign up, and I just had some cable mounts that I glued to the back of it, and I added some pipe cleaners there. Then I just attach it to my wreath frame, and then I go back and continue to adding the other tails onto my wreath frame. So here I have my bow maker, and I'm going to make, oh excuse me, I'm going to make a bow. I've also got a 1.5 inch wired wreath, sorry, 1.5 inch wired ribbon that's red and 2 tones of green that I'm going to use. Now I'm doing 8-inch tails, 6-inch loops, and then also 14-inch tails to go to the bottom of the wreath. You don't have to cut your tails as long as I do, or you can make them longer, whatever your desire. I tend to cut my shorter tails at 8 inches just because when I go to trimming it up after I've added it on my wreath and I go to trim up the tails on the wreath, I can make them a different variety of sizes, and then especially for the smaller tails that may hang over the sign, I like to cut them a little bit smaller so it doesn't cover up too much of the sign. So that's why I like to leave the 8-inch tails. It gives me just enough to where it's a good tail if I don't cut anything off, but if I need to, then I still have a pretty lengthy tail, and I can make it work. So here I'm taking the bow off the wreath, and I've got to make sure that I've got the tails and the loops going on the correct sides. That way I can gather it all up into this pipe cleaner and tighten everything down. And then for some reason I like to trim the tails off sometimes when I don't have it attached to the wreath. It's a little easier sometimes, just to make sure I don't miss anything, but it's really here or there with me. But like I was saying earlier, if I do cut, when I put it on the wreath and I find that I need to cut some of my tails shorter, then I definitely will. So I'm just going to take it and put it right on the top left corner of the wreath, and I'm going to secure it down with my pipe cleaner, and just make sure that I tie it tightly, but not too tight, around a couple of the wires. You don't want to put your bow or your signs in too tight, otherwise it'll pull it into the wreath, and you want more of it sitting on top of the mesh, not pulled in too far. Then I'll fluff this bow to my heart's content, and sometimes it takes a while and sometimes it doesn't. It's just depending on how everything's going that day. But this is how this sweet little summertime watermelon wreath came out, with such adorable ribbons, and the little ants on the signs are just too cute. Well, I thank you guys for stopping and spending time with me today, and I hope you all have a blessed week.